Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass Torch Studio. Today we'll be doing a rainbow fumed implosion with an encased opal. We'll be using gold, silver, clear, cobalt, and opals from Grandpa's Glass, or profound opals. First we'll start off with encasing the opal. I have here a nice little 3mm clear sphere that I'll drop in the tube and heatly gent the glass until it encapsulates that little opal sphere. As the glass heats up, it starts to move and the opal sticks to it, and glass starts to flow around it. And gently heating the glass so the opal doesn't get too hot. And as the glass moves and flows around the opal, you want to be careful to not trap any bubbles of air. Okay, so now the opal is fully encased, but has too much glass, so I'll need to strip some. I'll simply heat up the glob of glass containing the opal and stretch it out until the opal has hardly any glass on it. I'm a little shaky this morning. Just trying to remove most of the glass from the opal. Okay, so now the opal is ready to use. I'll preheat my blank a little bit. And place the opal right on the tip. The water's broken. So now to increase the surface area so I can put more dots into my implosion, I will blow out a bubble to increase the surface area. So I gently heat and gather roughly 2/3 of the section of tubing, trying to maintain an even wall thickness and even heat throughout. Okay, so blowing it out into a nice even bubble. Now let's apply some gold. So I've got a nice tight little oxidized flame. You want to be careful to warm the gold gently before putting it right on the tip to fume. If you put it in too aggressively, the little ball of gold will hop off, and they're very hard to find. So now the ball of gold is hot. I'll put it right on the tip of that center fire and catch a little bit of the gold fume as it travels off in the flame. A nice light coating is what I like. Now I'll apply some dots of clear over the fume. Whoop. I don't really start with any set number. I just put them on there. I put the next row between the first row, so it's 2 over 1. Now I'll put a little bit of silver on there. Silver's the opposite. You want it just on the reducing side. And here's a little trick I picked up from Noah Drew, a true fume master. You get the fume flowing and bounce it through the flame. Enables you to put a nice even light coat on there and avoids over fuming with the silver. So now I'll put more dots. Ooh. Oh. I think for this one I'll do some lines. So lines are really just long dots. They will achieve the same effect basically in a different scale than the little dots do. Okay. Boy. I don't know if I've had too much or not enough coffee. I'm a little shaky. So now I'll put some dark cobalt dots on. Okay. So now I've got enough dots to my liking. I'll start to implode it. And fume and the opal both want to be treated very gently. So you need to do the implosion a little slower than some other materials might like. If you get the opal too hot, you'll get some nice fuzzy little bubbles around it. And you get the fume too hot, you can burn it. Basically just trying to heat the entire surface that has the dots on it. trying to get it to come down to one flat level. Just gave the opal a little nudge, just a little deeper. Okay, and as I like to twist these, and I like to have my twist be even throughout the piece from the outside to the center, I'm going to go ahead and pre-twist the center a little bit. So as the dots on the face there come down to the middle, everything starts to tighten up and form a single mass. So I've got my dots basically to one plane. I'm just going to condense the remainder of the tubing to get a little bit more of a lens. Aiming my heat right at the shoulder of the marble itself and using gravity to let the tubing flow into that piece. So most of the remainder of tubing is already incorporated. Just a little bit more, and we'll continue the implosion. Trying to maintain that opal on center. Okay, a little better. So my aim is to get this broad spray of dots to come down to the smallest point I can achieve. So I'll continue to heat at the center of the mass and let things move into the middle and tighten up and go a little bit deeper. And this is where the compression technique comes into play. So I'm basically working with a solid mass instead of a tubing. So I'll flatten the face with the dots on it and condense again, which will bring things in tighter. And eventually it'll come down to one tiny little point. It's easier to do this if you can get it ripping hot, but with the opal in there and the fume in there, you want to try to avoid getting it that hot. So this can be a little time consuming. And flattening again. Those clear spheres are pretty hard to see in there. It looks like it's in a good place. And another flattening. The flattening helps push the little dots up in there a little farther and helps bring that clear down a bit more. If you can maintain your dots on the inside of that flat plane that we were on, this will go a little bit quicker. I have a couple that have sort of breached that plane. They may make it take a little bit longer. But if you can see, the center ring of dots, as well as the other rings, are tightening right up. As I can see the opal's deep enough now, I can start to put a little bit more heat into the face, but again, not wanting to cook my fume. Slowly, slowly, they start to reach up into the depth of the face, the lens, and tighten up on the back. You can see a couple of tiny bubbles that must have come from a little scratch on the rod. Okay, so this little area of dots is getting nice and tight. It's almost there. And soon I will remove the entry points. in there. So it's just about ready to pull off the little scar from all the dots going in. Just trying to tighten up that area just a little bit more, and then I'll pull it off. Okay. So I'll bring the center of that area up a little bit. And then I like to twist this little termination. So now I'm going to focus on getting things round and smooth. So right now I'm looking at the reflection of the fluorescent lights above on the surface of the marble, trying to see if there's a variation in its curvature or any ripple in its appearance. And it looks good. Now for my punty, I like to gather a little ball and heat just the face. Which gives me a little bit of wiggle room to get it nice and centered when I apply it. It also provides a nice, sharp, clean angle at the point of contact that should hopefully break off nice and clean. Also, hopefully, at the time that I want it to. I've shown my students here a few times, a few ways of how you can get your cold seal to do what you want it to, but at the wrong time. So now I need to remove the remainder of the tubing itself. And there are a few options of ways to do this. I think I will be pulling it off. Another method would be to blow this open and pop it and clean it up. Just slowly minimizing that void at the face of the marble. Trying to get it as small as I can before I deal with it. There we go. All right. So I've left a little bit of the bubble there, sort of as an indicator. So I want to pull off as much material as it takes to leave it clean, and that bubble lets me know where to stop. Okay, so I can see the bubble right at the tip of the marble and the tip of that punty there. So now I will try to put a little bit more heat back into the marble so that I can twist the fingers a little bit more. And this is where the ball on the punty comes in handy. Because it has the mass of the ball, it takes a lot longer for it to get hot and floppy or hot and fused, enabling me to put a little bit more heat into the marble to get those fingers to twist. And then I can come back and remove the waste here. And stopping when the bubble is gone. And if I eyeball it right, when I remove that, it leaves very little cleanup and smoothing left to do. I highly recommend the bump molds here. They're wonderful tools. Ooh. They're much more forgiving than the sharp rim mold. However, the sharp rim mold provides a nice clean edge so you can really see if things are round and smooth. A little fine-tuning on the rounding and smoothing. Hopefully that punty will break off nice and clean in just a moment. I don't know if you guys can see it at home there, but the opal is nice and shiny in there. And again, looking at the reflection of the fluorescent light above on the surface of the marble. And letting it cool just a bit so that this polishing I'm doing is just on the surface. Basically trying to bring the temperature down to being stable so I can grab it with my tongs and polish the punty mark. So the opal is sitting right atop the centermost dots, which are twisted at the same rate as the rest of the twist. And here I'm looking at the interface of the marble and the rim of the mold to see if any gaps open up, and looking at the line of light on the surface as well. I'll check the glow and the shadow. Looks like it's just cool enough. I will preheat these tongs. These are tools I've created myself specifically for this step. I give a nice little last check to make sure there aren't any little bumps or lumps that you feel. And pop off the punty. Gently heat just the area where the punty was making contact, and using the smoothing tool to ensure that that spot is in the same radius as the rest of the marble. And then simply a little flame polish for any marks that may have left. And again, checking that curvature of the fluorescent light. And it looks all right. I don't know, can you see the opal on there? Okay, and there it is. So the tongs are great. They're very handy for being able to place things gently in the kiln into a spot that you like on the surface that you like. Thanks for joining us.